I'm Margaret.
Sitting in my penthouse office overlooking Central Park, I'm surrounded by the buzz of my AI system, Psyche, and the desperate messages on my phone. My family is here, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief. Just moments ago, I revealed to them that I'm the anonymous consultant who's been pulling the strings behind their so-called real business deals. My mind drifts back to our last family dinner. I grew up in a wealthy family in New York. My father, Henry, is a strict and traditional man who values practicality and financial success above all else. My mother, Emily, is more nurturing but also influenced by my father's views. My brother, Ethan, is 32 and works at a top-tier investment bank, while my sister, Olivia, 30, is a partner at a prestigious law firm. They've always looked down on my career in psychology. At the dinner table, Ethan smirked at me. "Margaret, if you'd gotten a real degree in business or finance, you have something to show for yourself at these family dinners." I took a slow sip of my wine, thinking about the confidential merger documents in my office safe that could make or break his deal. Olivia, adjusting her diamond-encrusted watch, a gift from her firm, chimed in. "Real success comes from degrees that lead to high-paying jobs, not some useless psychology PhD." I quietly replied, "Psychology is fascinating. You'd be surprised how much human behavior affects business decisions." My father then started his usual parade of family achievements. Ethan just closed another multi-million-dollar deal, and Olivia's firm is handling the biggest corporate merger of the year. My mother added proudly, "They had no idea that I was the consultant hired by both companies to evaluate the psychological viability of that merger, and I was likely going to reject it." Aunt Linda asked with feigned concern, "How's your consultation business going, Margaret?" Ethan laughed. "She probably has a couple of clients with anxiety. Meanwhile, I'm handling real business." Just then, my phone buzzed with a message from my executive assistant. The White House had confirmed a meeting for the next day to get my assessment of the new economic advisory team. Olivia leaned forward and said, "Our firm is always looking for corporate counsel. Even with your unusual background, we might find an entry-level position for you." I thought about the psychological profile I'd compiled on her firm's managing partner, who'd paid a fortune for my services after I accurately predicted major market shifts. I replied, "I'm happy with my current work." Ethan scoffed, "Listening to people's problems all day isn't work. It's glorified therapy." I softly said, "You'd be amazed at what people reveal when they talk, their fears, plans, and vulnerabilities." My father interrupted, "Ethan's team is finalizing an acquisition next week. That's real business." I remembered my meeting with the company being acquired. They'd asked for my evaluation of Ethan's bank's offer, and I was going to recommend rejection because Ethan's team had missed critical psychological indicators in corporate culture compatibility. My mother said, "Margaret, we just want you to reach your potential. All that education, and what do you have to show for it?" I thought about my luxurious office, the long waiting list of Fortune 500 CEOs, and my government contracts. I said, "I do all right." Ethan declared, "All right isn't enough in this family. Look at my division's performance this quarter." I innocently asked, "How's the acquisition going?" He frowned, proceeding, "Why?" I said, "Just curious about human behavior patterns in high-stakes negotiations." Olivia rolled her eyes. "There you go again with the psychology nonsense. You'll never understand real business."
My phone buzzed again.
The company involved in the merger wanted to triple my fee for an expedited evaluation. Ethan pointed his fork at me. "You're too passive. In real business, you have to be aggressive." I thought about how I was about to derail his acquisition. I replied, "Sometimes the quiet ones have the most power." He laughed. "You sit in an office listening to people talk. That's not power." I smiled slightly and asked, "How many of your deals require psychological compatibility assessments?" He waved it off, "Some consultant nonsense. A waste of time and money." But then realization dawned on his face as he started to connect the dots. Just then, my phone lit up. Ethan's bank was requesting an urgent meeting about the acquisition. I stood up and said, "Excuse me, I have a call to take." Olivia smirked. "More anxiety clients?" I just said, something like that. I stepped into my parents' study, knowing that the next day, Ethan would find out who really held the power in his deals. The next morning in my office, Psyche announced that Ethan's team and the bank's CEO, Mr. Thompson, were arriving. I had Ethan's team put in the secondary conference room. As they realized whose office they were in, their faces went from confusion to shock. Mr. Thompson walked in, visibly anxious. He said, "Dr. Margaret, we have a situation with the acquisition." I nodded and said, "I assume you've seen my preliminary assessment." He slumped into a chair. "It's devastating. Your analysis of the corporate culture incompatibility and post-merger staff retention rates is eye-opening." Psyche displayed the compatibility matrices on the wall, showing complex psychological patterns and behavioral predictions. Mr. Thompson continued, "Your brother's team missed everything you caught. The target company's dedication to autonomy and collaborative decision-making style is completely incompatible with our acquisition strategy." I had Ethan and his team brought in. Ethan entered, his swagger replaced by fear. He stammered, "Margaret, you're the consultant."
Mr.
Thompson corrected him sharply. "Show some respect. She's the top corporate psychological profiler in the country." I watched as Ethan struggled to accept that his banking empire's fate was in my hands. He said, "But you just listen to people's problems." I analyze complex human behavioral patterns in high-stakes corporate environments. I predict merger success rates and evaluate leadership compatibility. I pulled up more data screens and explained why his acquisition strategy was flawed. Ethan protested, "The deal is solid." I cut him off. "The numbers don't account for human nature. Your aggressive acquisition style conflicts with their collaborative culture, and the implementation would fail within 6 months." Mr. Thompson nodded. "Dr. Margaret's previous predictions have been accurate to within 3%. Her assessment is final." Ethan collapsed into a chair. He asked, "How long have you been doing this?" I smiled and said, "Remember when you mocked my first corporate client 5 years ago? That client was the head of a major central bank. Now I have a 3-month waiting list and a 7-figure consultation fee." Just then, Olivia called about the merger her firm was handling. Psyche announced the value of my current clients, which included a significant portion of the Fortune 500, heads of state, and top global investment banks. Ethan's team shifted uncomfortably as they recognized the names of deals that had required my approval. I presented an alternative strategy for the acquisition to Mr. Thompson, and he quickly agreed. I then casually mentioned that the merger Olivia's firm was handling needed a complete psychological reassessment. Mr. Thompson said he'd call Olivia's managing partner immediately. Ethan finally found his voice and asked, "All those times clients insisted on a special consultant, it was you?" I confirmed, "Yes, and turns out psychology is quite valuable in real business." An hour later, Olivia and her managing partner, along with my father, arrived. Psyche displayed the data showing the high probability of cultural collapse in the merger and recommended a complete restructure or termination. Olivia clutched her briefcase, saying, "This is impossible. We've spent months on this and missed all the psychological red flags." I pulled up historical data of a similar failed merger and explained how perfect financials couldn't compensate for poor psychological compatibility. My father tried to smooth things over. "Margaret, surely we can discuss this as a family." I turned to him and said, "Like you discuss my career choices as a family? All those dinners mocking my degree and work, how's that working out now?" James had been silent, still staring at the client list on the wall. I had Psyche display the success rate of my endorsed ventures and the failure rate of those rejected or restructured against my advice. Olivia's managing partner pulled out his phone and asked to retain me for a full assessment. I said my next available slot was in 3 months, unless they wanted expedited services. He quickly agreed to whatever the cost. Ethan finally asked, "How much do you actually make?" I had Psyche display my annual revenue, which made Olivia choke on her water. I added that government contracts added significantly more to my income. My father asked about the government contracts, and I said, "That's why I miss so many family dinners. I'm usually having dinner with senators, CEOs, and world leaders." I reminded Olivia of when she mocked me for canceling a family dinner last month. I was consulting with a high-ranking government official on economic policy. The room fell silent as years of assumptions crumbled. Psyche announced that the White House was on the line for my assessment of the Economic Advisory Team. I took the call, discussing global financial psychology with the president's chief of staff as if it were a casual chat. After I hung up, Olivia asked, "Why didn't you ever tell us?" I replied, "Would you have believed me? Watching you all assume I was a failure while I built this empire was quite a psychological study." I confirmed that the acquisition deal was dead, but offered an alternative strategy that might save Ethan's reputation. I also said the merger Olivia's firm was handling needed a complete restructure. My father then said, "Perhaps we should discuss how to integrate your expertise into the family's business interests." I smiled and said, "No need. I already control most of them. Those psychological assessments your companies have been requiring all come through my firm. I've been directing the family's business success for years, and you just didn't know it." I walked to the window, looking out at the city where I'd built my silent empire. It's amazing how they were so focused on what they thought success looked like that they missed it right in front of them. Later that night, as I sat in my private study, my phone filled with messages from family members asking for business advice and wanting to move up the consulting waiting list. I archived them all and opened my calendar to next month's family dinner. Instead of the usual at my parents' house, I'd booked a private room at the exclusive restaurant I owned. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about letting them discover how right you've been all along. And sometimes, the most powerful person in the room is the quiet one who understands the human mind.